أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين. So today we're going to talk about the ruling of gelatin. Gelatin, for many people, when they hear the word gelatin, they're thinking this is a pig. So if you look into it, you'll find that most gelatin is derived mostly from porcine, meaning pig-based sources, from the skin and the bones and the cartilage and all of that. Or it comes from some other animal, but this animal was not slaughtered according to Islamic teachings. And so then they're saying that the whole thing is not halal, and unless it says kosher on it, or if it's plant-based, you see pretty much most Muslims going around saying this is haram. So there is a large body of scholars that take that approach. Let's take a look at these scholars who said, no, gelatin is not pork, and it is not something that comes from an animal. It's something that comes from something else. So gelatin is a translucent, colorless, flavorless food and product ingredient. It is derived from something called collagen. Collagen is the thing you take off of the bone, the skin, the cartilage. You turn that into powder. That right there, what you just took off, is collagen. That would be haram, okay? Because that is part of an animal that was not. So you'll find this in all kinds of food, medications, vitamin, drug capsules, cosmetics, and so forth. A lot of cosmetics have that stuff. How is it made? Gelatin is derived from the skins, the bones, the hides. The raw materials are prepared through different curing acidic and alkali processes that are employed to extract the dried collagen hydrosilate. There are 4 stages to this process. This is all just what scientists tell you how gelatin is made, okay? Because before we make a ruling as Muslim scholars, we were always taught, if it has to do with medicine, if it has to do with science, if it has to do with law, we look at what is the reality of it according to the general understanding. Then once we understand what it is, how it is, and why it is, and what's its impact, then we derive the ruling accordingly. So there's a pre-treatment, hydrolysis, extraction, and then recovery. These are the 4 stages of turning collagen into gelatin, which is why nobody that knows anything about science and how this happens would accept that you are calling gelatin collagen, because collagen and gelatin are not the same thing, right? One is what is derived from the animal, and the other one is what is made after a chemical processes. That's something different and new that smells, tastes, and looks completely different than the original. So many scholars, they looked into this and they said, if you look at how these things are made, it's called denaturing. Okay, so in this denaturing, this bone, cartilage, tendon, teeth, it forms these insoluble fibers and serves as connective tissue. So then through this whole process, the 4-step process, denaturing, that's the scientific word, which means to deprive something of its natural character and properties. For these scientific reasons and the fact that the color, the smell, and the taste of gelatin is completely different than collagen, many Muslim scholars are saying whichever gelatin you get, it doesn't make a difference where it came from, because that gelatin is not collagen. So it cannot be treated like the thing that came from the animal. So the common Muslim is going to say, yeah, but hold on, pork, And so that's fine. I'll tell you how my mind changed about this. And so I was in Kuwait, and I started my studies there, and me and my wife went to Mosque. So as we're going in, we're looking in the aisle about baked goods and things, and we saw the gelatin, the jello. I said, hold on. And I looked on the, is this gelatin? There's no kosher, there's no nothing. So we went to the management office. He said, no, we have Lajnat Shar'iyya, that is a body council of scholars that all come together and look at what's coming in and what are the rules and what is what, and they analyze all of these things. and they talk with scientists, and they talk with the food people, and they talk with how it's packed and where it's made, and what meat was done what, and who's halal and what's not halal, and then they allow anything in. I said, well, I need to talk to them. He said, okay, I will give you you can go talk to Dr. Muhammad Abdul Ghaffar al-Sharif. He is the head of that council, and we went there. So I went to Sheikh Muhammad's office the next day, and he said, yeah, the problem is that the common Muslim, we've had this before, they're seeing that gelatin and collagen are the same thing. We are saying that it's not. And there's something you need to study in Islamic law, young men. This is back in 2005, 2004. So he said, you know, istihala is a well-known principle of Islamic legal processes, and so you need to go look into that. Before I left, he said, but just let me help you understand something in a very simple way. Okay, I said, okay. He said, do you eat grapes? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, so grapes are halal. We're all in agreement on that? He said, okay. He said, you smash those grapes. Those are grapes, right? You smash them, and you sit them out in a while, and they get really fermented, sugary, and then it turns into alcohol, right? That's how we make wine. Wine is made from the grapes, right? He was like, so then it becomes alcohol. He said, now, can you drink that alcohol? And I was like, no. He's like, so the thing went from halal, and now it's haram. He said, how about you put it in a place like where the acidity will overcome it, which will then make vinegar, right? And so the same thing now becomes vinegar. Can you put vinegar? Can you eat it? Can you put it in your food? And I was like, I don't know, Sheikh. And he was like, no, you can. Like, there's actually authentic hadith on the subject, right? And so he's saying what happens is that grapes became alcohol, became vinegar, is one thing becoming halal, haram, halal because it became something different. You see what I'm saying? He said, that's your introduction to istihala as an Islamic legal process. So I said, okay, well. So I went to go study the matter. And I got on this bandwagon that, well, maybe there is some DNA of pork existing in there, in this gelatin, which there is some chemists that would say that. But guess what? All chemists would also tell you. Vinegar has between 0.3 and 2% alcohol still in there, right? Yeah, but who's going to get drunk off of that, right? You know? But is it najis? Oh, a lot of people didn't pay attention to that point. Right? But since the Prophet ﷺ allowed us to eat it, and he himself ate it and praised eating it with bread, okay, vinegar, right? Then that tells us that even though the majority, all four schools of thought officially said originally that alcohol is najis. So how's the Prophet eating najis, right? So that's another point there. Once the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih Muslim, he asked the family, do you have something to eat with bread? They replied, yeah, we have this bread and vinegar. And the Prophet ﷺ said, okay, great. And he said, it's one of my favorite things to eat bread and vinegar. This is Sahih Muslim. So when we look at istihala, going back to Abu Hanifa and all of the early scholars, they said istihala is when something changes from one thing to another. Imam Shafi'i has a very strict policy that unless it is vinegar or it is an animal hide, so for example, the skin of a dead animal is what? Najis, right? He's saying, well, according to some prophetic traditions, we can tan that hide and it becomes then something you can wear and all of that. So these are literal examples of istihala, and we only allow literal, what the Prophet has already specifically given his guidance. The Maliki school of thought are split. They have some scholars, most of the later scholars who are living amongst Christians and Jews took the more Hanafi approach. Hanafi and Hanbali both agree as a school of thought that istihala, when it's proven that it has changed, then it is istihala, no matter what it is. The analogy is good for anything, right? So whatever changes from one thing into another, that's what the Prophet ﷺ was allowing us. So one of the great Hanafi scholars, Ibn Abidin, he said, we often derive the salt from water. We can break down the ocean water and things like that. He said, if a pig went into that ocean and he died right in there, okay, and then we take the water after he decomposes right there in the water, okay, a month later we're taking the water from right where that pig was, and then we put it in there, we do not say, oh, the pig was there. This is Ibn Abidin. This is one of the greatest Hanafi jurists. He's actually the man who proved the Hanafi madhab as a school with a multi-volume interpretive codex. He said, so now that would be the same thing. some of the scholars said, when you are making large amounts of salt, when you're breaking down the stone and things like that, then if a rat or something fell in there, or a dog, they said, and then it went through all the process, and then it comes out, and what you see is salt. You don't see rat. You don't see, there's nothing there that would indicate that there is a rat or a dog in there. And so now you are fine, because istihala took place. Dr. Wahb Suhaili, and back in the early 1980s, there was a big discussion of the Fiqh Council of International Council of Muslim Jurists. And Dr. Wahb Suhaili is one of the premier, Allah yarhamu, he passed away a few years ago. He was one of the great Hanafi scholars from Syria. And he has, mashallah, a 12-volume book called the Al-Fiqh wa Adillatu, Al-Fiqh al-Islami wa Adillatu, the whole jurisprudence of Islam, and he brings all of the different 4 schools of thought and talks about them in his thing. So there was an issue about, we have so many new people coming for pilgrimage in the early 80s. And this is becoming such a big deal, but we need Mina to grow. And so there was big debate, and many of the Shafi'i scholars and some of the modern quote-unquote Salafi Hanbali scholars were liking Shafi'i's very strict approach on this istihala issue. They're saying, if we're going to expand Mina to this place where people are going to walk out and go, and this is the place where they used to have the gha'it, right? So, before, they didn't have plumbing, There was basically whole areas where urine and feces would be collecting over years, right? So Wahb Suhaili is saying, yeah, but the sun is beating on it. And he said, istihala, like that's dirt. If we can all go there and see. Like after many months of the sun, that is now just became dirt, right? You can mix it all up and look at it and smell it. And there's nothing pee or urine or feces there anymore, because it has gone through the natural process of decomposition, right? Now it just becomes dirt again. And they argued the point, and they took his position. Right? Now, nobody told the Shafi'i Hujjaj the next year that now they're going to be going to a place where they're walking through and sleeping in the area where it was all the year before, gha'it, So they took that position using istihala. So, based upon all of this is my personal position, that I take the position of Sheikh al-Qaradawi, Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul. Muhammad Bazmul, he is the teacher of comparative jurisprudence at al-Qura University in Mecca. Abdul Ghaffar al-Sharif, Dean and Professor of Sharia at Kuwait College. Ali Nashmi, who is one of the top Maliki jurists, if not the top Maliki jurist in Kuwait. He's also on the Fatwa Council. He makes his own personal point about this. Tahir Mahdi al-Balili is on the European Fiqh Council. Musharraf Hussein al-Azhari on the Dar al-Ifta al-Masriya, which is the Egyptian Council of Fatwa, and Muhammad al-Hawari from the European Fatwa Research. These are all well-known top PhD scholars who have analyzed this thing and came to the conclusion that it does not matter where you get your gelatin from, because gelatin is not collagen and you cannot take it from that. One time I had a conversation with a sheikh who takes the position that it's too doubtful and it will create too much turmoil in the Muslim community. And so for me, I'm not going to push a ruling because of the fear of the religious mob who don't know what they're talking about, right? This is not how we do Islamic law, in my opinion. Right? He's saying I have enough things to deal with than to try to bring gelatin to people, right? If you know what I'm talking about. MashaAllah, may Allah preserve the Shaykh and keep him in his great lofty position as one of our, if not our top scholar here in America. So I'm here to tell you that you can look into the matter, but definitely what my main, because I know many of you are just set in your ways, it's like this is, in my whole life I've done this. Again, you're seeing it, that this opinion is like a part of who you are. We don't eat gelatin. That's my family thing. This is wrong, bad. We are locked and loaded, fine. If you want to keep that, nobody's like telling you to change. What we are telling you, which is a problem, don't go gung-ho mufti ad-diyar on people, okay? If you see other people eating it, don't start trying to rebuke them, because what? Because all schools of thought have always agreed, لا إنكار في مسائل الاختلاف, في مسائل الاجتهاد. There is no rebuking other people. There's no using amr al-ma'ruf and nahy al-munkar when there is a disagreement amongst jurists. When scholars have disagreements on a matter, You can't go and say, don't do that because I said so.